70,000 people are here, and then Bob Dylan is the reason for it.
Inspired by their true story.
For anyone who's going to hold your attention on a stage, you have to kind of be a freak.
Are you a freak?
Hope so.
And starring Timothée Chalamet as Bob Dylan. He defied everyone.
Turn it down! Play loud!
To change everything.
Make some noise, Big D.
Timothée Chalamet, Edward Norton, Elle Fanning, Monica Barbaro. A complete unknown. Only in theaters Christmas Day. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent.
From the ashes of Kumandra, the fictional world created in Raya and the Last Dragon, it's Scraping the Vault and Ears Up podcast. Today, we're reviewing Encanto, Disney's latest musical. Here with me today is Dan.
Hi, I'm Dan. I hate the Beatles.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
De nada, ¿y tú?
Buen provecho. And Jimmy.
Hey, it's Disney's 60th animated feature.
Mucho gusto.
Oh, God.
All right, that's the majority of the Spanish I know.
Nice.
Good job. It is the 60th animated feature that Walt Disney Animation has produced.
And they came out with their best.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Am I?
Yeah.
We'll get
This is
into it.
This is going to be an interesting episode, I think.
It might be. This is the final of our 2021-2022 season of Dealer's Choice.
Woo,
As a
woo,
reminder,
woo.
we had Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer in December. We had the very unique, maybe the best film we have reviewed on the show, Mulholland Drive.
Yes.
And then we're closing it out by quote-unquote Audrey's pick that I think I made her pick.
Yeah, you kind of
Disney.
No.
I thought she was sincere, and then I realized she never seen it before.
I hadn't seen it. I really, I was like, I better watch it, because I watched Bruno, which I loved, and that was Disney Pixar. And so
Was that Luca?
Luca, you're right. My bad. There is a
Bruno's
character
a very
named Bruno
different
in
movie.
it.
Yes.
I've
We will not
seen
review that on
one.
the show.
You see it once, you've seen it enough. No.
I watched
I'm
it
glad
on
we
an
watched
airplane
it.
one time. I was watching it on an airplane one time in the little individual screens, and they did not edit it at all. And so there's a little kid sitting next to me, and there's a swinging wiener on the screen, and I'm like hiding the screen. Anyway.
It wasn't cut for content, and neither
was
was
not.
Bruno's.
No.
Or was it? I don't remember. I just wanted
It
to
was
make
not.
that joke.
Wait. I think it was.
I don't want to recall
Cut? Oh,
this
I
image
get it.
right
Cut.
now.
You're talking about like circumcised?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
am
probably was.
hilarious. I've come in with my best jokes to celebrate
you
Disney's
have.
best movie for their 60th
If you have any
movie.
opinions about Bruno's, either the one in this movie or the one in that movie, please call 856 Our Ears.
Can you imagine? Somebody calls, Mike Renfro answers the phone. I'd like to talk about Bruno's,
This is a podcast, right?
the one about not the Sacha Baron Cohen one, not the Disney one.
Those of you who just heard a change in audio quality, you can call 856 Our Ears.
And ask about Bruno's dick.
Right.
You know
And ask-
who...
Call 856 Our Ears and say,
856 Our
hi, this guy keeps talking about how he has a degree in music and like audio and stuff. He totally just changed the audio quality 17 minutes into the show.
Hey, listen, at least we have audio quality, unlike some other shows on the Ears
That's
Up
right.
Network, you know.
Yeah. Forget that time
So-
I recorded from my laptop.
We all forgot it. We
That
all
was fine.
forgot
That
it.
worked out fine.
Oh, and then the one at the little
Oh,
outside thing in San Diego, that was
oh.
rough. When like
A classic.
Kathy
That
Lee
one's got
Gifford kept flying in.
Yeah. I mean, the impressions are good, but the audio quality was lacking.
Yeah. We've only gotten better in our time.
It's good. That's just
So, yeah, we watched Encanto. Some of us for the first time, some of us for the 40th time.
And some of
40th.
us for the last time.
Maybe not 40. I've probably seen it a dozen times. And like this calendar year, like I may have watched it like around Christmas time last year, but the music has become such an earworm, and of course my kids they're watching it all the time. So
yeah.
It's just kind of on. I think they're watching it right now as we record.
Hilarious. It is earwormy.
Yeah. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
Listener, you're going to hear Dan double down.
No. I'm just, I guess it's, Jimmy, I think it might be helpful for you to know that there are parts of the overall thing that I did find very enjoyable. And and very good. But I have a lot of issues with some other parts of the whole.
I'm curious to hear your issues. I don't have issues with it, but there are some clearly abrupt cuts or gaps in storytelling that I don't understand. Yeah. And I probably understand the story better than both of you, just on account of all the times that I've seen it and all the videos I've watched and whatever. But it's
prove it.
I don't. Yeah. I'm not even going to look at my notes. I'm just going to rattle it off my brain notes.
And that's what we always do.
And it's just like, we'll get to it, but I don't understand why Mirabelle doesn't get a gift. I think I do, but it's taken me a lot of sort of.
It's because the story needs her not to.
Maybe. And that probably is true, Dan, but there's got to be a reason. Just kind of like we talked about on the other show about, this store doesn't need a backstory, but it has one because that's just what Disney does.
Yeah.
I think I know, and I'm going to explore it with you later.
Okay. Well, speaking of backstory and people thinking that they knew things, this time around, I'm going to be sharing, this movie came out just last year, or if you're listening to this, in the year 2035,
Encanto 4 comes out next week.
Exactly.
Because as Mr. Chapek pointed out, this is now a franchise.
Right. Mecha Chapek will be delivering Encanto 4 to your brain via Disney asterisk. And speaking of Mecha Chapek, Bob Chapek was born August 21st, 1960. He's an American media executive and businessman who is chief executive officer of the Walt Disney Company and is the most thumb-like person to have ever held that job. Before becoming CEO on February 25th, 2020, he had a 26-year career with the Walt Disney Company, beginning in the home entertainment division. That's right. He is our daddy. He's the person that was responsible for the straight-to-video sequel.
Daddy Chapek.
Daddy Chapek is here for us.
Chapek was responsible for straight-to-video?
He oversaw that department.
Wow.
So he has always been our daddy.
Without him, we'd be nothing.
All this Paul Pressler talk, and it's been Chapek all along.
Right, I know.
Chapek all along.
So I began with Home Entertainment Division and rising to become the chairman of Disney Parks Experiences and Products. Chapek graduated from George Rogers Clark Junior Senior High School in 1977. He later earned a Bachelor of Science degree in microbiology from Indiana State University, Bloomington, and a Master of Business Administration from Michigan State University. As anyone with a Master of Business Administration or anyone with the Masters of Education degree knows, those are not real degrees. Yeah. Chapek worked for the Heinz Company in brand management and in advertising for J. Walter Thompson before joining the Walt Disney Company. He began his career in 1993. He started as the marketing director for the company's Buena Vista Home Entertainment Division, which at that point was still very much focused on VHS tapes. In 2014, Chapek launched the Disney Imagicademy, which was a suite of numerous tablets and smartphone apps designed to give children high-quality learning games. A recent search for information about a Magic Academy brings up absolutely no current information. Someone connected to the show who works in the education industry took a quick look at it and has the opinion that a Magic Academy is to education as Pizza Hut is to Italian food. On February 25th, 2015, Chapek was named chairman of Walt Disney Parks and Resorts, and he received a lot of criticism for pinching pennies and also pinching cheeks and being adorable. Bob Chapek has also allegedly said that he wants to make the Disney parks 20% more racist. He is also Tom Corliss's secret boyfriend. Bring it, Corliss.
Tom Corliss, like the chef?
No, he's a Disney vlogger guy. Yeah.
Is that a chef? I'm thinking of Kat Corliss.
Sure. She has a kitchen.
And Tom Colicchio.
Tom Colicchio, right.
I watched a lot of Iron Chef and Top Chef.
Wow.
Tom Corliss actually said on a recent video that he wants to murder Tom Colicchio.
Oh,
yeah. I've decided that we need to start just any sort of beef with that person because he will take the bait.
For sure.
Will absolutely take the bait.
Yeah. It's just a goofball, but he's so self-important too. It's just
right.
I don't know. Anyway, yes. So that is Bob Chapek. Started microbiology. Now he's a micromanager. Ooh. It's the worst kind of manager.
Science.
Now, I don't have a trailer for Encanto, but I do have a trailer.
DC Cab. They've got class.
Where to, baby?
Nowhere with you.
And they care.
This is the trailer for the 1984 movie DC Cab starring Mr. T.
So thematically and symbolically and
they're basically the same. He's
emotionally the same.
Yeah. Mr. T is like the sister that's really strong.
In DC Cab.
It's Louisa.
Fasten your seatbelt.
Here we go.
They're back on the street. DC Cab.
Yeah.
Cool.
Nice.
We should have watched that. It would have been more interesting.
Ouch. Burn. So, listener, I did not take play-by-play because I assume that most of you have probably seen this. And the reason I do the more obscure movies, I do the detailed breakdown so you can kind of see in your mind's eye what's happening. But I presume that all of you have seen this or are familiar enough with it that I don't need to do a breakdown.
Or have heard all the songs sung over and over
exactly.
Again if you are around teenagers or children.
Yeah. So I still have 8 pages, but I just have a synopsis and then some details. So you ready to get into it?
I re-listened to that one song like a couple times because it really is pretty great.
Talking about the Bruno?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, much to my chagrin, I enjoyed that song.
Yeah, and I work in the education industry as we have discussed, so I have heard that song countless times.
I have things to say from the mouth of the creator of the music and where these songs come from. Yeah, Lynn. LMM. Yep.
Praise his name.
Yep. I have a lot of behind the scenes inspiration for each of the songs, so you can kind of appreciate where he was. I predict
bring it on.
There will be
bless you
5 moments.
Salud.
5 moments where Audrey will go, "Oh, that's interesting," or "Cool," or it'll enlighten Audrey 5 times.
Okay, but here's here's a little preview of where I'm coming at this from.
Place your bets, folks.
and this is kind of akin to where I stand on a lot of the Walt Disney World over-imagineered stuff. Is it's like interesting is fine, and it is interesting, but it doesn't necessarily improve the experience in the moment.
Most of what I'm going to talk about is creative inspiration, and maybe not, but it's like the other show that we do. If you know that it's a river of poop running through the Liberty Square, it's like it doesn't change anything in the experience, but it's just one more thing. Oh, so next time I go there, or next time I watch this movie, I'm going to notice this detail and go, "Oh, that's really cool." World building, whatever, and that's That's what I predict. 5 times for Audrey. Probably 10 times will Dan be like, yeah, well, well, that's what it's supposed to do. Yeah.
We're as predictable as a Disney plot, aren't we?
We sure are.
So, okay, here we go. Forced by an armed conflict to flee her village in Colombia, a young Alma Madrigal loses her husband, Pedro, but saves her triplet infant children, Julieta, Pepa, and Bruno.
Fraternal.
That's triplet, right? Not triplet?
Triplet.
Okay. Oh my God, it's a music term. That's so interesting.
Uh-huh. You thought it was going to be a couplet, but it's a triplet.
That was a fake one. Don't count that towards the tally.
Okay.
That's how I feel when I
was hamming it up.
Yeah.
By a miracle, her candle attains magical qualities, blasts away their pursuers, and creates a sentient house, the casita.
And burns for 8 days and 8 nights.
8 crazy nights.
And they ate latkes. Oh, wait a minute. We're in Colombia.
A casita for them to live in, along with a magical realm bordered by a tall surrounding mountains, an encanto, or charm in English. Now, there's in Colombia there is sort of a culture of realistic magical, like it's part of the culture, I think.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's fantasy. A magic candle burns and builds them a surrounding. I don't know what this conflict is representing. I don't know what the backstory of it is. I assume there's probably 20 pages that are on the cutting room floor or whatever that explain it.
Around the time period that it's set in, which people have speculated is around 1950, I didn't think I was going to go there so give me a second. I will cut this part out because I was actually looking for ways to incriminate America's involvement in Latin America. But there was basically a 10-year civil war from 1948 to 1958. Between the Colombian Conservative Party and the Colombian Liberal Party. And basically someone got assassinated. I'm just skimming here. Mm-hmm. Someone got assassinated and there was kind of a fight for, who's going to control the country. And so, if this is connected, because from what I read previously, and I'm just skimming now and I'm not really good at communicating and skimming at the same time. There were basically, there were violent, people were throwing Molotov cocktails into buildings and people were fleeing. And that probably makes this family a leftist family, which makes me very happy.
For those of you, those listeners, again, from 2035, sound familiar?
In 2035, the liberals will be conservative and the conservatives will be liberals. And it'll all just fold in on itself like a big quesadilla.
It's appropriate? No.
I don't know.
Spoilers, the liberals are conservatives.
Whoa. 50 years later, the candle continues to burn and a town thrives under its protection. The candle's magic grants gifts to each madrigal descendant, which they are to use to serve the villagers. However, Bruno, vilified and scapegoated for his gift of precognition, disappeared 10 years earlier.
And then starred in the movie Minority Report.
Sure.
As a precog.
Yeah.
While Mirabel, Julieta's youngest daughter, mysteriously did not receive a gift and feels left out of the family for it, and we sing the family madrigal.
Right.
Exposition.
And I'm trying to find...
This is, in fact, exposition. So this was Lin-Manuel's push for this movie. This was his but this was his sort of concept, proof of concept, because normally in a Disney movie, you have a antagonist, you have a protagonist, so there's a villain, there's the heroine or hero, and there's traditionally an I Want song. Think of Part of Your World. Think of I Want to Be King. Think of that. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But this, like Moana had 8 brothers in the original original draft, but they're like, we don't have time for 8 brothers. Moana needs to save the world. Cut the brothers. And so there are 9 characters in this, right? Or 11 or something like that. There's a lot of characters. And this was sort of his way of presenting all of the characters and give them some kind of theme, some kind of rhythm or whatever. And his inspiration for this was the song Belle from Beauty and the Beast, where at the end of that song, you know who everybody is, you know how everybody feels about each other. And it just does a really good job at world building. But this was, I think, the first song he wrote for the movie, because this is, hey, let's keep everybody, and here's how we can do it.
So I want to bring you into my process in watching this, because the day that I was planning on watching this, I was kind of negative. It's, usual day for me. And I was thinking, this is going to suck. And I was thinking, okay, well, let me at least, we've been talking about how to address the music in this, because we can't actually play the songs because, Yoko Ono will sue us and, all of that. And, so I was thinking, okay, well, maybe we tossed around a lot of ridiculous ideas, but I thought, what if I look into the music, because this is a very music-based thing, and try to figure out where these come from beyond just like story-wise. Like for example, this is and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this. I probably am, a Vallenato tune, and I have an example of that. And so I went into this, and what it looked like was, because Colombia has like over 1,000 different musical traditions in it, like legitimately over 1,000. And that was right. And that was part of the draw of Colombia for the filmmakers, is they were like, well, here's this place that has so many different things and so many different influences, and they connect, but they don't really connect at the same time. And wouldn't it be interesting if we had this family that kind of had that quality? And I really, really, really was under the impression that each character would have a specific musical style, which, I mean, I don't seek out a ton of Latin music, but I do have a degree in music. So I have taken 2 classes that involve world music. I know that's nothing, but it's like a drop more than your average idiot, which I am your average idiot.
You're in good company.
So, right. So I was actually really excited because I saw, this is this kind, this is that kind. And it kind of falls apart later, which we'll get into. But just to give you something, here is a fairly, from what I can tell, traditional Vallenato tune. And it is... I'll look at credits and I'll put them in the notes.
What? Because my story? I'm the main character, Mirabelle. Sorry. Here, I'm going to sing about our family now.
So what you're hearing here, that you hear in the soundtrack, is a lot of accordion.
Yeah. She even is given an accordion at one point.
Yeah. So that's something that you hear a lot in this style. That scrapey sound, there's a lot of that.
That extra scrapey sound is Audrey.
Yeah, I have a little. Sorry.
Do you have a maraca with you?
No, it's a skull-shaped shaker thingy.
And what's really cool about these traditions is that what I've learned is that it's kind of like it's like a recipe for food, in a sense, where it's like, we're gonna make chili, and we know that chili has, some spice, some beans, some meat, and that's it. All these musical styles are kind of like that, where it's like, we're going to do a Vallenato, or I don't know if even I said that right. So that means the person on the scrapey thing knows what kind of pattern to do. The person on the accordion knows what to do. Every instrument has a set role, just like a family. And within that, there's a lot of like little micro variations that you can do. But at the end of the day, it's really just, we're going to make this style of music. This style of music has a thing that everyone does.
Yeah. And I think that that's something that Lin-Manuel Miranda does very well in his career, is he samples from other types of music. You think of Hamilton, you could point to any number of specific songs, specific artists, and that kind of thing. Same with, In the Heights, like it's sampling from these very specific genres and styles of music, right?
Right.
So the Family Madrigals, go ahead.
that's all lovely and very cool. What my issue is that I don't think it really works that well. I mean, it's cool that he was able to create a really catchy song with Mirabel explaining everyone in the family and giving us sort of a foundation. But it ultimately, I think, for a younger viewer, is just too much information. If he had picked one or two people and made it a little more specific, then, and also had picked a villain, like a tangible villain, then you would have had something more beloved and classic.
So here's some notes I have from this first part. Her power is going to be insight. Singing to the camera. Why? The old lady is the villain.
So a couple of things before I lose my train of thought. I disagree with you, Audrey. Now you may be right for a small child that it's a lot of information, but you also need to remember that kids watch this stuff over and over, and so they absorb it. And I believe it is quite beloved, and it will be more of a classic as time goes on. I say that only because this album is the number one album in America. We don't talk about Bruno as the most popular song since like the early 90s, even more than Let It Go.
How much of that is carryover from Hamilton being the most popular thing in the universe?
I mean, I don't know that my children know that Lin-Manuel did both, but I assume that most children don't know and don't care. But how much of it being the number one album is because it's affiliated with Lin-Manuel, I don't know.
Right. And I'm not saying that this is, just to be clear, this is kind of a Beatles thing where it's like, I don't blame him. I blame how people consume media more than anything. Like I actually like him. I think he's fine. I think he's doing a lot of right things. I think that maybe he could have made himself more uncomfortable in this by like trying to push for a little bit more authenticity rather than this is this style of music filtered through the usual thing that I do. But also he's still, I mean, this is like his third album kind of thing. Third albums are generally kind of difficult. So I get it. I think that he's,
well, you got to remember Moana was his sort of audition. In the Heights was his first, like that was his freshman year. And then he wrote Hamilton, but it wasn't released on Broadway before he was hired for Moana. He was writing Moana before Hamilton came out. So technically Hamilton was his third. And then of course he's done a bunch of other stuff in the interim.
Right. But I mean, my sort of standing point with Lin-Manuel Miranda, and this is out of concern for a person that I think is actually extremely talented. I think he has like 3 to 8 really, really, really good tricks up his sleeve.
He's
like
getting
really good
boxed
ones.
in.
But I think that's true for most composers. I mean, you listen to a Sondheim musical and you can tell it's a Sondheim musical. They have a style. Everybody has a style. And Sondheim has his own little tricks. Like he'll have a melody and then he plays the melody in reverse and makes a whole new song, like by his own admission. So I think every talented artist has that trick.
I think it's one thing to come back to things after going off to field for a little bit to explore new things. And I think that Lin-Manuel Miranda just hasn't had the time to do that yet. And again, this is a pro LMM argument. I would genuinely love to see him with his next project, whatever it is,
Little Mermaid,
do something. Oh God. He needs to get away from Disney. He needs to be challenged.
I mean, he's effectively everything he's done is affiliated with Disney in some way.
I know, and I worry that is going to stifle someone who I think has a lot of promise.
And he does have a lot of promises. He's very talented, but at the same time, it was The Little Mermaid that he saw when he was a little kid that inspired him to do this. Like it was watching that blew his mind, and he's like, "Oh my gosh." And then then he saw Tick, Tick, Boom on Broadway, and he's like, what am I doing with my life? And that's what inspired him.
Right. I don't know. But you know what I do know is that it's time for a commercial break.
We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
That sounds deliciously consumable and orderable.
And comfortable to sleep in.
All of it.
What do you think, Asher?
Generally speaking, the rampant commercialism that surrounds us all only serves to turn each one of us into an individual target market. In some ways, this further alienates us from our purpose in our society by making us produce surplus value passively. We are not given a chance to produce value which we have any kind of personal connection to, almost like how the humans in the Matrix produced energy through their ambient body heat without knowledge or consent. While having our value as individuals simply to a source of revenue from one faceless entity to another, I do think that Ad Break was pretty cool. And real.
Uh-oh.
All right.
All right. So, okay. One thing I want to point out in the Family Madrigal is when you're writing a musical, which I've never done, but when most people who write musicals, the characters have a theme, right? And like Star Wars, Luke Skywalker has a theme and Leia has a theme, right? So creating themes for different characters. And if you'll notice in the Family Madrigal, when Abuela comes in, who, by the way, for all intents and purposes, is the villain. But what I like about this movie is there is no traditional villain. It's about family. It's about communication. It's about compromise and togetherness and how to live with each other and whatever. So I like the idea that there's no villain. But for all intents and purposes, Alma is. So
the real villain is consumerism.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But in the song, her section is the same melody as Dos Oruguitas.
Uh-huh.
Dos Oruguitas. And her thing is, so that's her theme.
Yeah.
Because that song is her song and the story of she and her husband or whatever, which we'll get into later. But I thought that was really cool.
That's how you write a musical.
Exactly. On his 5th birthday.
Woven.
It is woven, and like Dan said, there's a lot of callbacks to things, and it's like you said, that's kind of how you write a good musical. On his 5th birthday, Peppa's youngest son, Peppa, remember, is the one that controls the weather. Youngest son, Antonio, is gifted with the ability to communicate with animals, and the family poses for a picture, but neglects Mirabelle. She sings "Waiting on a Miracle." Now, this is the I Want song.
Yes. And it is, go ahead. Sorry.
And just the I Want song, I could mention a couple of examples before. So when you're writing a Disney princess, if you will, I Want song, you're on the same playlist as Let It Go. You're on the same playlist as, I Want to Be King or Can't Wait to Be King and Part of Your World.
I Want to Be Shiny. The Crabs song.
That may be the Crabs I Want song, but that's not the protagonist. So, but anyway, so in writing this song is like, there's a lot of pressure to have it be the next part of your world. So he ended up just going back to Columbian music and found a particular type of Columbian waltz, which is in 3/4 time, which is completely out of step with the rest of the music that's in the movie. So she's literally out of step with the rest of the family in singing a waltz.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn it.
So
I said wow again.
Well,
That's two.
Here's the thing. Yeah, there's so many details in the music and in the character design and their outfits and what they're, what they look like. I just don't think, I think they spend there's just like way too much focus on putting in every possible detail that they can think of, but like kind of missing the big picture.
I think a lot of what Audrey, you and I think are experiencing comes from how the movie was made. It was made during shutdowns and all of that. And what I'm seeing in this, and I promise Jimmy, I'm going to get positive about this at some point. It's like, it's not like too many cooks. It's like the cooks have walkie-talkies and like they're bad walkie-talkies and they're saying like, hey, I'm going to do this. Okay, copy. You're going to do this other thing that kind of sounds like what you just said, to the point that, like, for example, something that I found well, kind of, but not in the usual sense. Like, I really feel like everyone was doing their best, but I don't think that there was a cohesion there, at least for the first act, because the first act goes on for like 34 minutes or so, and no actual story. It's all just, this is this person, this is that person, which is character, and that's fine. And an issue that I really had that took me out of it immediately, by the way, character animation is great. Facial expressions, absolutely wonderful. It's a well-made bad movie.
Like Uncanny Valley to me. It's
really
it's too
okay.
good.
I can see that.
Yeah, the character movements are very fun and sharp, but
that didn't bother me.
It's getting too realistic for me.
I can see that. But what did bother me is after the Family Madrigal song, which is we're going to introduce everybody and talk about what they can do, then we see a scene for 2 to 5 minutes that is introducing characters showing what they can do. It's like, it's an hour and 45-minute long movie. You don't have to have both things. And this breaks the rule of musical, which is the reason that we're singing is because we're going to do a story shortcut, and I'm going to tell you all these things. I'm going to show all these emotions. I'm going to show, not tell. But then right after the musical number, it's
telling.
We're introduced. It's telling again. It's the same stuff. It doesn't need to happen, and it's so frustrating.
So might I counter that with, to Audrey's point, there's too much information. This is reinforcement of that information, and it's not the focus. Mirabelle is the focus, and everything that's happening around her is just enforcing the thing that we just learned about.
I get what you're saying, but to me, it just reads. It could be that, but I think to me, it just reads as the songwriter was not communicating with the script person.
The problem with that reinforcement is that there's just too much information. Like, I would understand if the song was about 3 people and then they reinforce those things for 3 people. But, they have to cover everyone else in the movie.
That's the age-old point that I think Lin-Manuel was pushing to fight against, is let's have because this is about family and multi-generational family, which is very Latin, having multi-generational families living together. And what is that really like? And so what they're exploring in these scenes is the dynamics of each of these people, their powers, what that means, what it means for the community, what it means to the family. And the overarching conflict is Abuela trying so hard to make sure that everyone is being their absolute best at all times because of this miracle that she doesn't want to lose. And so we're exploring all that in all these scenes.
I think they have done it better if it's not?
Oh, I have that. And I'm glad you brought it up because I forgot. You might need to remind me because that's going to be later.
Okay,
but
we'll put it at the end.
Yeah. I totally have. I have how to fix this. But I guess my issue is, and I think it's actually good too. My issue is really just that first scene feels like, okay, why did I just sit through that song? Besides it just being a Lin-Manuel Miranda song that we're not going to cut because it's Lin-Manuel Miranda, which is fine.
It's energetic.
Keep one of the two. That's all I'm saying. Or start inserting more story earlier on rather than it being like, here are the characters, here's what they can do. And then 20 to 30 more minutes of here are the characters, here's what they can do before we get to, okay, well, what's the story? Why am I watching this movie? What's it about? Rather than look what we can do.
So
sorry. I'm just going to add on. I think it's a bit
Jimmy,
of a
you look
letdown.
so frustrated. I'm sorry.
It's a bit of a letdown that the conflict at the top of the show is that our character is normal when everyone else is special around her versus something like Beauty and the Beast, where the main character is special because she's different. She reads books, or in a superhero kind of situation. Like, what if Mirabelle was the special one, but still had her family around? Then the conflict could be something greater than I'm just a normal person. Because it's not a problem to be a normal person. So I think that's confusing.
Maybe in this world it is, because so I think I understand everything you're saying, both of you, and I can accept the point of we're doing the song again, but I'll reiterate my interpretation of it is yes, and we're seeing how this all works. Like, not just what they can do, but how it all works in this dynamic, in this community. You know what I mean?
It's a proof of concept for the world in the movie itself and for Lin-Manuel to Disney.
and this is how it really works in real life. And then it's the central focus point of this character who doesn't have any powers, right? She didn't get a door, but she very much does have power, which we'll get into later. And, you know, Abuela doesn't have powers either.
I think the first third of the movie to me feels like watching one of those movies where it got messed with by the studio, where it's like, I can see the movie that it could be, and it's very, very frustrating.
There are definitely, like I said at the outset, there are parts of this thing that are missing.
Right.
And I don't think it's a lack of collaboration. I think it's cut for time or just some other reason why there are parts of this missing that would make it better.
It was Disney-fied versus DreamWorks-ified. Well, Shrek exists. That movie's pretty great.
It's fun, but it's not like, I don't know, it's not beloved.
So Waiting on a Miracle is a Bambuco song, which is actually a 6/8 time, but this is a 3/4 time in this one. 6/8 is it's a lot of scherzos or 6/8. They're kind of like, it's a dance, but it's a joke because there's no way you could possibly dance that fast. But this is kind of just waltz. And here is an example that should play any moment. Thank you, Zencaster. We love you.
Is this 6/8 or 3/4 time?
2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3
Oh.
1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 2 2 3 1 2 3 2 2 3 1 2 3 2 2 3. So it's 6/8.
Oh.
1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2.
Yeah, there's other ways you can do it.
Waiting for a miracle.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I see it.
If you would like to sue us, go to...
No, Dan, this is clever. I like how you've worked around
good.
this limitation.
Thank you for doing this, because this is wonderful. And it's actually better, because everybody knows the music, so finding the inspiration for the music is brilliant.
We're the best podcast.
We are.
You guys
are the best.
By the way,
already.
we're a better podcast than our listenership would believe.
What are you saying? We have the best listeners.
We have the best listeners, but we don't have enough of them. It's surprising because it's really well produced. It's really well edited. It's entertaining. We have Audrey. What else do you need?
Folks, you heard it here first.
So, after waiting on a miracle, leaving the celebration, Mirabel suddenly sees the casita cracking and the candles flame flickering. But her warnings go unheeded when the casita appears undamaged to the others. So, this part. Now, the house is breaking. Exactly. The house is breaking. She sees it breaking. Does she see it breaking? Because Abuela sees it also. She's seen it before, or at least that, or she doesn't believe whatever, because she prays to her dead husband later, like, the house is breaking. So does she believe Mirabel, or has she seen it herself? And does this actually happen? Because the next scene brings everybody out and it's all fixed. And
I think the first time she's the only one that sees it. Oh, and by the way, she lives in the nursery.
Yes, she does. She didn't
Why
get
do
a
they
door.
treat her so terribly?
Because she doesn't have magic.
This family is awful.
Yeah, that's a pretty uncool move.
So yeah, I don't understand this part. That is she imagining it happening because everyone comes out and it's not broken anymore. So is this a metaphor?
I think what I took from it, and I put in my brain notes, that this is an example of toxic positivity. And I think that's what a lot of this movie, I mean, beyond the greater themes, that's what I immediately noticed in this, is that even if it is true, they're going to, especially Abuela Exposition, is going to sweep it under the rug. You know, she's, because it looks bad. You know?
Yeah, and she's overprotective and
she's
controlling and all the things as the villain.
So I think that she does. I think the first time Meg does have the vision,
Meg,
and it's
she's the Meg of the
story. I think it's a vision the first time around, and then of course.
But how did she cut her hand?
Because the house doesn't like her.
And the house is kind of a dick. If it really did break apart in front of her and cut her hand, and then it fixes itself, it's like, what are you talking about? Nothing happened.
The house is the least consistent and also least necessary part of the story.
I think the house is fun as an extra character. It's fun. It's cute.
I think it was there. We're looking at theme park opportunities. And by the way, the whole time I'm looking at this, I'm watching it and I'm thinking like, how far away are we really from the Madrigals appearing in the Mexico Pavilion?
I mean, next week.
Mirabelle's already there.
Are
like in full costume. Yeah, I've seen it on the Instas and the TikTokers and the Shazams and the Wooms.
It's Disney logic where you have
I know. Why set it in Colombia then?
You have that's fair, but you have Aladdin who's in Morocco.
Apparently they're all Mexicans. It's just,
I mean,
Disney said it, not me.
It's Aladdin's in Morocco. You gotta do what you gotta do, because I'm sorry, but for most,
do not defend this.
No, I'm not defending that. What I'm saying is most people couldn't tell the fucking difference. You know what I mean? Like Joe Blow, Florida guy going to Orlando to Disney World doesn't know the difference between Mexico and Colombia. Let's be honest. Like, I mean, Audrey earlier was talking about quesadillas in Colombia. They don't have quesadillas in Colombia.
What? You expect me to be a culinary master of Colombian food? No. I mean, I know
arepas
exist.
Tell us what we're eating later.
Just you wait.
Just you wait. Anyway,
I want to get demonetized.
So enough about the house. We'll get into it.
We're barely monetized. I'm shocked, but I shouldn't be shocked that they're at the Mexico Pavilion.
I mean,
so now it's just the South American or Central American.
It kind of always has been, though, a little bit. I mean, think about the ride. You have Three Caballeros, which was set in South America, not in Mexico.
Right.
Only one of the birds is technically from Mexico.
Yeah.
Donald's from, Disneyland or whatever. But I think it's always been.
Does it serve Disney to get this
Chicago.
Specific with their location and their setting and their like?
Yeah, that's fair,
details?
Audrey. I think unless it was set in some magical, mystical, like Arendelle, which may have served the story better if it was not Colombia specifically with the word Colombia written on the side of a building.
Right.
Like if this was,
Colombia-ish,
Areola or whatever, I don't know, like some magical, mysterious country probably would have served the story better, to your point, because then it can be more generic. Because
the more
the actors
you get. Yeah, sorry.
You pigeonhole yourself a little bit, but that's.
But then
also.
And once you've gotten that specific, you get people saying, well, why didn't you show this other specific detail? Because, I just think it's a slippery slope, a slippery areola.
Slippery nip.
Like, when it's general, you can sense the, we get where this is. But saying, like, this is Colombia, and then putting in certain details, but omitting other details opens you up for criticism, saying, well, why didn't you put this in if you're in Colombia?
What's interesting, you're right, and Dan, like he said, there are 1,000 different musical styles, and I'm sure there's all kinds of things. And what's interesting about that, I just learned today that Lin-Manuel was frustrated about, watching. He didn't see himself represented on screen or on stage outside of West Side Story, and so he writes In the Heights, and he brings in this whole group of Latin people, but then there was all this outrage because there wasn't enough Afro-Latina.
And it's like, that gets right to it is I don't see myself on screen. Well, are you only looking at the physical characteristics or because you can relate to any character based on their story. I don't think it has anything to do with how they look. And I think with the Lin-Manuel Miranda In the Heights example that you brought up, I'm taking your word for it. I don't know anything about it. I think, and this is kind of where I'm at with this a bit, and I don't want to go into too far into a weird place with this.
when you don't actually, when you only bring in the people from the culture as like consultants, you're kind of exoticizing the culture, which then opens you up to actual criticism, where like I'm looking at the credits for this and it's really a bunch of white people who are like, we love Colombia. We're going to talk to real Colombians and we're going to have them advise us on what to do, rather than say like, hey, let's bring in a storyteller from this culture and have them tell their version of this story, because then by doing that, it becomes authentic, rather than it being like, here's the illusion of authenticity. Doing it this way is very well-meaning, but so is Nancy Pelosi wearing the kente cloth. Like, you just kind of look like an idiot at some point.
Okay, so yes, I accept your premise, and you're right. And I think they maybe went further in this movie than others, right? Like, you can go to Africa and write The Lion King. Right. So you're right. And there was some Colombian influence. There's a couple of Colombian singers that perform, but you're right.
But not writers.
Yeah. The writers are white dudes. And I mean, there may have been obviously some influence in story and whatever.
Totally. And they try. I'm not saying that they didn't try. They absolutely tried.
But the songwriter's a New York guy who has family from Puerto Rico.
Right. So instead of bringing in a bunch of musicians that are, experts in these types of music and saying to Lin-Manuel Miranda, okay, you write the music, you write the chord changes, we're going to make it the music that we make it. And yeah, you could do your pop stuff to it later, but it's kind of 80% ours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get your point. It doesn't detract for me, but I see your point.
It doesn't. I wasn't sitting there fuming the whole time. I was just, again, watching the movie and seeing what the movie could have been and being very frustrated that it was not that.
Mm-hmm. How did you feel about Shang-Chi?
Didn't like it.
Okay.
Marvel
Which does exactly
movie?
what it's like a bunch of people from...
I just thought the story was dumb. I don't care for it. I wasn't interested in, it looked cheap. It looked like, I didn't enjoy it. That's woke? The thing is authenticity doesn't mean that that anyone has to enjoy it, which is, I think, where the woke criticism comes from. When you're just dealing with aesthetics, it's like, I want to like or dislike a thing on its own merit, not on the aesthetics.
Well, there you go. Let's keep talking about this movie.
Does that make you a racist?
According to some people, probably.
Okay, so after overhearing Alma praying, she's praying to Pedro, her dead husband. Mirabel which is when she says, "Oh no, the house is breaking. What do? We can't lose the miracle. It's been 50 years." Mirabel resolves to save the miracle's magic. The next day, she talks to her super strong older sister, Luisa, who confesses that she feels overwhelmed by the near constant work she must do, and she sings Surface Pressure. Now, this song is sort of a love letter to Lin-Manuel's older sister, who was, the firstborn, feels like she has to take on all of the burden, and so this was sort of a love letter to his sister.
Oh, that's cute.
And it is in a reggaeton style. And don't worry, I don't have a whole lot more of these because they stopped going for authenticity real soon. And it's sung by Jessica Darrow, who, by the way, I found the performance in the movie really not good. However, there's video of her performing the song with just a stand-up bass, and it's very, very, very good. Like, she's a very good singer, very good performer, and this song, this recording of the song does not do her justice. And Audrey, were you going to say something?
I don't like this song. I mean, I like parts of it, but I just don't like it.
Yeah, it feels cheap to me.
I think when you look at the number of plays in Spotify or something for the soundtrack, this one's not as popular as Bruno. Right. But then neither are any of the other ones.
None of them.
Right. And to give you an idea of how little Disney knew what they had, they were pushing for this song to be the Oscar contender.
Yeah, they did not submit Bruno, I don't think.
Which is it's a bad idea. I mean, but I understand why they did. They're like, oh, this is going to be a hit. People like girl boss songs. It's like, no,
it's not really. She doesn't actually sing. It's really more spoken than anything. It's the
right, but she can sing. The actor can sing, which is what's so frustrating about it. Here's an example of reggaeton. By the way, it was really hard to find one that wasn't dirty.
Isn't that Gasolina song reggaeton?
I'm not sure.
Isn't Rigatoni one of the characters from the Chuck E. Cheese band?
Yes.
Reggae? Never heard of it. This is like spiritually on the same line. Yeah.
And this, again, I'm going to put the stuff in the notes so that I don't have to mispronounce things and have everyone call and complain at 856 our ears.
Oh my God, Dan! I'm amazed. It sounds just like
Lin-Manuel. I'm amazed.
Yeah, they popify everything.
Yeah, which I don't have a problem with that.
I don't know.
I mean, I think again, I would find it much more interesting for Lin-Manuel to release it into the world of the actual musicians who are actually used to doing this, and then come in after the fact and say, okay, now it's collaboration time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that'd be really interesting.
Yeah. And maybe that'll happen someday, but it didn't.
Jimmy, I promise it gets better.
Okay. So
at least for me.
So Luisa suggests that Bruno's room in a forbidden tower in the casita may hold clues to the phenomenon. There, Mirabel discovers a cave and recovers pieces of a slab of opaque emerald glass. After Mirabel narrowly escapes the cave. Sorry, go ahead.
It kind of felt like Indiana Jones. And I was
didn't it?
Now I'm paying attention because they're not all scream singing.
Well, and I like too that of course I knew we don't talk about Bruno, and I didn't know much about the story because, well, there was no story until now. And I liked that they had this scene before the song.
Yeah, it's a fun scene. Like you said, it's like adventure. It's funny because she's climbing all the stairs, and I think she's singing Family Madrigal as she's walking up the stairs.
Yeah.
She finds the rope and, the birds and whatnot. So it's a fun thing. And after she narrowly escapes the cave, Luisa discovers that her gift is weakening. After her family reminds her of the reasons that Bruno is not to be discussed, we don't talk about Bruno.
Mm-hmm.
Banger.
This is,
real fast before you get into it.
Yeah.
This song is effectively end of Act 1.
Yes.
And it was the inspiration for this song was very much the end of Act 1 of Les Mis, the end of Act 1 of you name it, and Hamilton does it and Book of Mormon does it. And a lot of very popular modern musicals take all the themes of all these different characters that we talked about before, and they all sing on top of each other. And all those musical thread lines are all playing together. So it feels like the whole thing, the whole story is coming together at the end of Act 1.
I wonder if Lin-Manuel Miranda is over influencing himself and not just trusting that he can write.
Maybe, but I think it's hard. I would imagine it's hard to write a musical, and you have to pull from those tricks, and you have to pull from your inspiration. I mean, what musical is not inspired by another musical, and vice versa? So you're limited with a certain number of notes and a certain number of.
I love
Jimmy,
this style.
I know
of
what
song.
it's like to make music. Okay.
Yeah,
but I guess
the difference is this has notes.
So do mine. Very long notes. But I think. To me, that's why I stopped making music, is because I realized that I was just doing the same thing over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that I'm better than Lin-Manuel Miranda or anything like that, because ultimately what I decided is like, oh, I just don't have anything more to say.
Yeah. But I think you're right. He hasn't had a long enough career. He may be overhyped, but when you take a song like, imagine Hamilton, and we don't need to talk about that necessarily, but we don't talk about Bruno and Dos Oruguitas. those are completely different songs. They're completely different styles. Neither one of them scream Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Well, we don't
maybe
talk about
Bruno, but Dos Oruguitas was written to be a song that has always existed. Like it didn't. He wanted to write a song that didn't sound like he wrote the song. That is just, it was a folk song. It's always existed. And that's, by the way, exactly what it felt like.
Look, I'm not saying that he's a talentless hack. I'm saying actually the opposite. I just think that he's in a place in his career that, because it's like, oh, here's the next thing. Here's another offer, another offer. He hasn't been given the chance to be uncomfortable and really get in there and get dirty and creative and grow. He might at some point.
I predict that his next solo non-Disney project, be it a musical or some other movie, will be that opportunity.
I really hope so.
And I hope that he succeeds.
Like, I would love it if We Don't Talk About Bruno was something that's just as good, just as catchy. And if someone were to say like, oh, by the way, that's written by the guy who did Hamilton, I would actually be surprised.
Right. And, but yeah, and you're right. He's still incredibly talented. We'll get to Dos Oruguitas later because I think it's great.
So I watched like a facts about this movie, and they were talking about this song, and it is a type of song called a madrigal or a madrigal, madrigal, yeah. Which is
the idea of a madrigal song is exactly, and all those voices and themes coming together.
Isn't that a fun little Easter egg?
Well, it's the name.
It is. Yeah, it is. And so this song is. It says that salsa, Cuban folk, hip hop, and dance. That's all stuff that we probably could have caught on to, but Guajira is where it has its real heart, I think, and it goes a little something like this.
Ooh. Yep.
Also, I can't not associate this song with Usher's song Yeah. Yeah.
I'm taken to The Hangover.
It was my wedding day.
Yep.
It was our wedding in the sky. I don't know about Bruno.
When Lin-Manuel explains this song, he says it's from a very Latin family tradition of, no, we don't talk about that, but let me tell you about that.
Yeah.
He's the beginning part with Peppa and her husband is taken directly from his parents. You're like, am I telling this story? Or,
Yeah.
You're
and
telling the story, or am I?
Who's the character that can hear everything?
It's Dolores.
Easily my favorite character.
She's great.
She's wonderful. When she talks about the rats in the walls, it's like she might be crazy.
And you can see in the background when she's singing in this song, you can see Bruno in the background.
Oh, really?
I didn't like the thing that she did. I thought that was annoying.
It's really quiet. Like, and when she sings, it's quiet because everything is so loud to her.
And they have that moment where this was the turning point for me. So Jimmy, it's going to get better. I promise. I don't know about for Audrey, but for me it is.
No, this song absolutely was like, okay, all right. I told you.
That's when Audrey commits. Never mind. Fraudry.
But
her twin sister is Fraudry.
But we have that moment of exposition in the room, and they're like, no one can know. And then we see her, it's like, I know.
Yeah, exactly. She's
a
great.
Legitimately funny shot.
And I don't know how weird this is going to sound, but to Audrey's point, how realistic these characters look, she's definitely the most attractive to me. Anyway. But the other thing also, Audrey, if you watch it again, when things get really loud, when everybody's singing, she's covering her ears because it's too loud.
Oh my gosh.
Because she can hear a pin drop.
I must have missed it. I was enthralled. On my second rewatch, I realized that the two sides of the family with children were separated by color temperatures. So
yes, they sure were.
Yeah, you got the yellow and the red and the cream on
Peppa's family.
Juliet. Damn it, I got her names wrong. Peppa's family.
Julieta is Mirabelle's. There's more blue. right?
Cool tones, teal, purple.
Peppa's more yellow, red.
I thought we were being oddly racist for a second.
and this will come back later.
Like, oh no.
This will come
I
back.
Hoped wouldn't happen. Is happening.
It'll come back later when we get a little bit more into Mirabelle. But Bruno, his uniform, his costume is, like I don't know what you call it.
Poncho.
It's like a poncho, right? And it's specifically the color go away green that Disney uses to hide construction.
No.
It's specifically that color. It is. It is. It's go away green. Look at it side by side.
Doesn't make the movie better, but it's interesting.
But it is interesting. My point is that he's hiding in the walls. Go away green is his color palette.
I get it.
Mirabelle's costume has details from every character in it.
Just you wait.
And the fabrics, man, the fabric looks so realistic. And then also her glasses are green, just like
they're the same color of go away green as Bruno, which is how that ties in. We'll get into that in a little bit, but. What I really like about it, and you'd mentioned it earlier in some of the realism and style, is this was a choreographed. Like there was a choreographer who choreographed this music, and you can tell. Like it's
you can totally tell.
And the way the skirts swing, and it's I love it. And like the hand movements and stuff, it's clearly been choreographed, and it's really well done.
Yeah, I saw Into the Heights, and then I was thinking, this feels like a capital M musical where there's like
this isn't Cats.
It's not a Disney musical where Anyway.
Okay, so we don't talk about Bruno. After that, Mirabelle reconstructs the glass and discovers it forms an image of herself standing in front of the broken casita. Mirabelle assumes this to mean that she will destroy the family. Later that evening, Mirabelle's older sister Isabella, who can make plants and flowers grow at will, is scheduled to become engaged to neighbor Mariano Guzman. After a tense dinner, Mirabelle's oldest cousin Dolores, who possesses superhuman hearing, blurts out that she overheard Mirabelle talking to her father about Bruno's vision.
I really do love that movie.
Yeah, it's a fun scene.
I know. Not I heard. Just,
I know. This is like in Parasite when they spoilers ahead if you have not seen Parasite. Everything was going fine, and then in 10 minutes or so, hell breaks loose. You got to watch that movie.
Yes. That's
if
our
you
next
haven't
one.
seen it.
The casita begins to crack again, causing everyone's powers to go haywire, ruining the night and Mariano's proposal when Peppa inadvertently conjures a downpour. As everyone flees the chaos, Mirabelle follows a group of rats and discovers a secret passage behind a portrait. There she encounters Bruno, who reveals that his vision of Mirabelle would have put her at odds with the family and potentially the townsfolk who relied on the magic for everyday lives.
And by the way, I don't know that character was supposed to be John Turturro, but that's John Turturro.
Yeah, a little bit. And I thought it was kind of, some of those scenes were fun. There was a little bit of mystery in her going through the walls. And then she falls down a big crevasse and he saves her. And then he brings her in his little lair, which is right next to the kitchen. So he's in the walls, which Dolores can hear. And he's got a little table setting for himself on the kitchen. And he's got these little rats that he improv'd that little part of that little scene with the telenovelas. Like that was all improv.
Yeah. Well, and I like the little weird ticks he has that knock.
Well, it's OCD like crazy.
Yeah.
He's got to knock on certain things in order to close the door or whatever.
Superstitious with the salt.
Exactly. He can see the future. So Bruno broke the vision because he didn't want to imply that or potentially implicate Mirabelle. So to protect her, he broke the vision and went into hiding to protect her.
Well, and I think that what is missed in the song or what is missed by these characters is that, he does see the future, but he sees it's almost like he's seeing the future as like a David Lynch movie or something.
My God,
where,
right?
Where it's just like,
it all could I know be. Is that's part of it.
Yeah. All I know is that there's this thing, there's this one part, and it's usually the most traumatic or stressful or worrying. So it's not like, when he sees rain on the sister's wedding day, it's like, oh, it's going to rain and it's going to be awful. For sure. yeah, it's just like, well, I can tell you're stressed, and that's what you do when you're stressed.
Right?
It rains.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you missed my ironic joke because it's rain on the wedding day. Anyway,
10,000 spoons.
Yeah, all you need is a knife. It's ironic.
You know what's ironic is that a song about ironic things is actually just about kind of unfortunate
coincidences. Yeah, but that's been argued to death. So Bruno reveals that his vision could change, meaning that Mirabelle would either destroy the magical family or heal its rifts. And I really like what you're saying, Dan, about he's making observations about things that will happen, but not it's going to ruin everything, but rather this thing happened. But also, if you look further, this other thing also happened.
Right.
And like the guy getting
I can relate to that all the time. I mean, anyone that's definitely that's kind of how not that I could see the future, but I'm definitely somebody who's just like, oh, this awful thing is probably going to happen. And then a lot of people will think, oh, you're super negative. And it's like, no, I'm just saying that this thing's probably going to happen. So let's prepare for it and it'll be fine.
Yeah. And then after that, something else will happen and better things or whatever, right?
Life is a series of things. Some are awful, some are not.
Yep. And, so anyway, so Mirabelle then urges Bruno to conjure another vision. At first, it goes the same way as the previous one, with Mirabelle standing in front of the broken casita. However, a golden butterfly appears, which will come back later, and the vision changes into an image of Mirabelle embracing a young woman with whom they identify as Isabella. Now, this is where we introduce what I don't like about this movie. Is that
Jimmy? Why do you hate this movie so much?
Not that I don't like it. It's creating this thing that in order to save this miracle, you got to hug your sister. You got to make up with your sister. Like, this has been the central conflict the entire time, and in no way has it been. You know, she irritates her little, she's perfect, and she bats her hair at her little sister because she's in the way, and she ruined her engagement or whatever, which wasn't her fault. But why is that the solution?
I can't believe I'm about to defend this awful movie, but I'm kidding.
It's not an awful movie.
I think because he only sees pieces of things, I think that what he's saying is that is like an inciting event that will then bring everything to a head. Because
which is true.
The way that happens causes all the conflict to come out into the open, which is what ultimately needs to happen.
Right. That's a good point. And also it could very well be Abuela hugging Mirabelle is what is being seen, or it could be a metaphor for that, because we'll get into it later, but Mirabelle is the new Abuela. So and I'll talk about my sort of supporting argument for that later as we conclude. But further in the story, Mirabelle insincerely apologizes to Isabella, but accidentally provokes a cathartic confession. Isabella does not want to marry Mariano and is burdened by her image of perfection. She sings, "What else can I do?"
And I have nothing there other than in this one moment, a character who I found to be highly irritating and awful became really relatable and cool.
You're talking about Isabella?
Frankly, we all know I'm perfect. And that, I don't know. No, I don't know how, I don't know if it's normal to know people like this person, but I have known at least, I'm going to say 2 people like this person just to hide my tracks. And it is so relieving and so nice to see them become actual people with flaws. And accepting the flaws and loving the flaws and being like, yes, this is why I like you, not that other crap.
Right.
Other crap. You could lose it all. And I want this version.
This song is fun. It feels the least Columbian to me. It feels a lot more Frozen. It feels a lot more Bobby Lopez.
Definitely. It's kind of following in the footsteps because there is a Colombian pop scene. There is everywhere. So I think that this one didn't bother me terribly. It's just like, oh yeah, there is Colombian pop. Shakira exists, you know.
I don't like the way it starts with the kind of weird guitar thing, you know?
They all start kind of weirdly, I think. But that's me just getting nitpicky.
Let's talk about Bruno. Like, it starts immediately.
Right.
There's no
that one
preamble
I like.
or. And the other thing, like, what I didn't like about Surface Pressure is I don't like when "oh" is a lyric.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I think it's sloppy. I think it's lazy. This song I liked. It just felt a little bit lazier to me. But I like the song. You know, what else can I do? But it is very Elsa.
Yeah,
It
and
is
there's a
very
lot
Elsa.
there's a lot of rhymes in there that should not be rhymes.
But also, what I liked is
the line where she's like, "A wave of Jacaranda." I don't know.
And what I was about to say about that is that part of the research with Lin-Manuel was does flowers. So he's trying to research like all the different kinds of plants and flowers that grow in Colombia, and then all the plants and flowers that couldn't grow in Colombia, and including those in the design because she could make them grow.
Right.
And so jacarandas is it's something he's never heard of, but that's just a Colombian flower or plant that you can add into the lyrics, and it just kind of makes it more, it builds it out more.
What for me, what it lacked in song enjoyability, it made up for in like character development and story, where it's just like, okay, thank you, things are happening now.
and this actually introduces the central conflict because Mirabelle helping Isabella blossom into her true imperfect self, and they embrace, which strengthens the candle and heals the cracks. But then Alma sees this and sees that, she's not perfect anymore. What have you done, Mirabelle? You're ruining everything. So she accuses Mirabelle of causing the family's misfortunes out of spite for not having a gift, which has been her bubbling concern the whole time. Mm-hmm. So it's Alma's need for everybody to be perfect and fit in their own little box, which is what causes Luisa's concerns of being weak and Isabella's concerns about being perfect, and how they can finally be themselves. But then Mirabelle's like, hey, no, it's you who are creating all this pressure. And then their rising argument weakens the candle again, and she creates a fissure that splits a nearby mountain and demolishes the casita.
I learned it by watching you.
Exactly. Despite Mirabelle's efforts to save it, the candle dies in her hands, leaving all the Madrigal powerless. While the family and several locals assess the damage, a guilt-ridden Mirabelle leaves the town. After a few hours of fruitless search, Alma finds a tearful Mirabelle back at the river where Pedro died. She explains how in her determination to preserve the magic, she ignored the toll it took on her family and finally takes responsibility for what happened. And we hear Dos Oruguitas.
And this is when Dan loses the Beaches Challenge.
This is...
I don't know why. I mean, I know why, because it's a well-written song and it's a well-made piece. Here's the thing. Here's an issue I have, and it's kind of, Jimmy, remember we were talking about World of Color, and this is partially why I'm on the show. We were talking about World of Color, and we were talking about how it's this fiendishly perfect thing that manipulates you in ways that you don't really recognize, and in ways that you do recognize, but in ways that you don't really recognize, to the point where at the beginning you're seeing this thing that's kind of disappointing, but probably on purpose. I don't think the beginning of this movie was disappointing on purpose, but then you get to a point where Disney has learned that if we just give these emotional cues and play these things and have this instrument playing at this resonance, and we show this kind of thing, and I'm not even saying this I'm saying it in a neutral, critical way. It's not necessarily good or bad. Where if we can have this vessel for emotion that we can just put anything in, and people will start tearing up, and they'll just be like, oh, this means so much. And when really, I mean, looking at it from bird's eye view, in this scene, we learn really nothing about this character other than that there's a song that we're supposed to hear, but the song is super effective.
She told her story at the start of the movie, right?
Yeah, it's they wanted to tell the whole story, but it was just too much at the beginning. So this is sort of the back end telling the fuller story, because at the beginning, all we see is the death of her husband and the miracle happening.
What if
it's a great trick.
what if they had given this the up treatment where they started with
Oh, sure, yeah.
Alma?
I think they workshopped it
for you.
But this song is about two caterpillars. That's what oruguita means in Spanish. It's about two caterpillars, and then eventually they become butterflies, and they need to, they have to go into their cocoons, and it's a really beautiful story that was written all in Spanish.
They
for the
have
first
to
time he'd never
liquefy
written.
their insides.
That's right. But it's about butterfly or caterpillars who become butterflies, and it's a part of the natural progression. So butterflies are a representation of the casita, of the miracle. It comes back in Bruno's vision. The butterfly is very much symbolic of what this story is all about. And anyway,
don't get me wrong, it's a super effective scene, the super effective song. It's a good song.
Yep.
I just worry and am fascinated by, and I don't think this is it, but with that we're getting to a point where we can just go pure formula.
Yeah, but I think you're right, and I don't know that that's a bad thing per se, because everybody does it, and especially Disney. But if you think about the context of our show and the movies that we traditionally talk about and explore, they're doing the same tropes. They just don't do it as well because they don't have as many talented people doing it. So,
well, I think it's about hiding your tracks, just like with all
sure.
the influences with Lin-Manuel Miranda, and really anybody. I mean, Bowie, one of my favorite people, was very influenced by a lot of different things. It's just, what do you do to hide your tracks? How do you make it interesting?
I think that in this case,
it works.
He covered his tracks.
Absolutely.
This is not a Lin-Manuel Miranda song.
Right.
This is the one you're talking about. You play this song. This is the same guy who wrote We Don't Talk About Bruno. Like
100%.
That's incredible. And it was written completely in Spanish, and it was translated for the album. But how do you sing two caterpillars and make it sound good? So they kept Dos Oruguitas and what's the butterfly? It's mariposas.
Mariposa.
They kept those.
I think a lot of credit goes to the singer also.
Yeah, who's a Colombian.
Right. And I think it's a really, really, I think the fact that it's so effective after the movie having such an unevenness to it up to this point for me, I think it's a testament to the song. And I think that song might end up being the thing that I like about the rest of the movie. Because the rest of the movie can just ride on that moment, as far as I'm concerned.
Sure, and sometimes that's all it takes, and that could be for any movie or a ride. It's just there's one moment that makes the whole thing worth it.
Is this
right? I mean, jumping jellyfish. You don't think they're going to come back down,
exactly.
So, in some other Disney animated movies, they have these songs with lyrics playing over the main characters doing something, or
like a Tarzan.
It's called diegetic.
Yes, which is why Tarzan for some people isn't as strong as the rest of those kind of golden age movies.
Well,
what
plus
if
it's Phil Collins.
If Mirabel and Alma had sung this song as a duet,
I don't think
would
it would.
it
they tried it, and it wasn't going to be a duet. It was going to be Alma and Pedro singing it, because it's her song. I mean, this is Abuela's song. It's her theme. This is her song. This is her story. So, which is why she sings this melody in the beginning. But they did try it, but it didn't work.
I think it works really perfectly.
I agree.
And
I think I squeezed out a drop or two of moisture.
Yeah,
out of your eyes.
Yes. No, my butt. I have diarrhea.
You too? Yeah, it's good. It's a good song.
Okay, so after hearing Alma's tragic backstory, Mirabel tells her that despite her flaws, she is the one who brought and protected the family together all these years. After a golden butterfly appears, they reconcile, and Bruno appears, confronts Alma to defend Mirabel, but unexpectedly cheers her up with his return. They reunite with the Madrigals, and the townspeople arrive to help them rebuild the casita, and they sing All of You.
Yay.
Mm-hmm. They do.
Which is another fun song. It doesn't feel, I don't know all the 1,000 different Colombian themes, but this feels very much like a Broadway musical ending.
I forget the song completely.
Here's where I have to do that thing I do. There are over 1,000 different styles, and I was very interested in hearing more than 4. And you got lots of music because there's a whole lot of music. You can just shove that right in there. Just hire that band. Be like, here's the chord changes. Here's the lyrics. Do it in whatever style you think fits. And I don't know. I feel like 1,000 different styles, they'd be able to find one.
But they didn't for this one. That's what you're saying.
That's the end of Dan being negative and hating everything.
Thank you. So when the house is, but by the way, it's a fun song. And of course they do talk about Bruno, and Bruno comes in and doesn't sing well. And he sings a riff from Let It Go. Blah, blah, blah.
I can't stand the rap singing.
Yeah. So when the house is rebuilt, the Madrigals give Mirabelle a gleaming doorknob with an M on it. And when she places it on the front door, the magic springs back to life, restoring the casita and all the family's gifts and spreading through the town. The Madrigals pose for another family picture, this time with Mirabelle and Bruno included. Now,
and it gets messed up, which is perfect. Or not perfect.
Well, it's an imperfect picture. Yeah.
Right,
so
exactly.
So that's the thing about, because now they're an imperfect family, and that's great. And that what brings them all together. This is Mirabelle's door. She is the miracle. She makes the house come to life again. She is the new abuela, because, abuela doesn't have any gifts. She's 50 years, or she's 70 something years old or whatever. And so Mirabelle has now brought the family together. She is the miracle. She is the new abuela. So much so that, like you were talking about, Audrey, all of the characters have different designs in their costumes in order to represent and reflect their gifts. So, for example, Isabella has florals, Luisa has weight patterns, Dolores has sound waves, Camilo has chameleons on his costume, what's his name? Antonio has animals on his outfit. Peppa wears sun earrings. Julieta has a mortar and pestle symbol for her dress, about she makes food that heals people.
Mama's got candles and flames and stuff.
Right. And Bruno's poncho has hourglass symbol, and it's go away green. Abuela Alma doesn't technically have any special powers, but the Madrigal family candle is embroidered on Mirabelle's skirt, representing that, signaling a key connection between Abuela and the family and all their gifts. There are also small embroidered images on Mirabelle's dress. There are flowers for Isabella. There's a chameleon for Camilo. There's a hand lifting a weight for Luisa. There's a sun, a rainbow, and a cloud for Peppa. And, of course, she's all wearing... there's also a tiger and a toucan on her dress that you can see even before Antonio gets his gift.
Dang.
So she's like the tree of life for characters.
She's the new abuela. She brings everybody together. She's represented, and she has, of course, the go-away green glasses.
And butterflies.
She's the Meg of life.
Yeah. So, but my point is, the problem that I had
Similar
before...
haircut.
That I didn't know what she was all about. I think I landed there with, she is the new abuela. She doesn't have the gift, just like abuela doesn't have the gift. But
I think you mean abuela nueva.
Sure. But she brings the family together. She is the miracle, and everybody's fine who they are. They don't have to be perfect, and we happily ever after.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yep.
And I feel like I took the opportunity for the, oh my God, interesting away, because I watched those videos that were like, here are those cool details.
Oh, you already saw that? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Rob him of his power.
Thank
Rob him
you.
of his power. I love it.
Yeah, we were up to 3, by the way, but I think Dan got 2 of them.
Nice.
Okay. So that
I scowled. How much did I scowl? More or less than you verbally scowl?
Less than I expected.
Okay.
And I appreciate that you were upfront about the fact that it gets better, and it did.
Oh yeah, no, I usually don't do that. But I knew going in that the amount of criticism that I had for the first part would have just put you in this like really hopeless place.
I appreciate that. And what's funny is I enjoy the first half better than the second half.
Really? That's interesting.
And like once it drops off for me after Bruno, but that's true for most musicals for me. I usually like the first act better because it's typically more expository. It's usually the more fun. I don't like drama. I don't like conflict. So that's usually what's introduced in the second half.
And that's something. It's doing these shows. I hope it's mutual, that we're learning things about each other and how we view the world, and that I'm seeing that you actually enjoy being told why you should like something. I hate that.
Because when I go see a movie, I go in absolutely to get lost. Like we talked about, I like the bubble. Right. And I'm in there to enjoy and just absorb stuff. Like bring it at me, but tell me, because I'm not in my head is the thing. I'm immersed in an experience. Mm-hmm. I want you to tell me what it's all about, what's going on, because I don't want to think about it, because that's not why I'm here. Mm. And it's only after I see it again and watch all the behind the scenes stuff that I start to appreciate things more. The first viewing for me for anything is very much like, what just happened at the end? That was awesome, because I went along for the ride. Mm. And I don't analyze it until after the fact, because why would I sit there and analyze the thing when I'm there for escapism? I'm there to be entertained. You know what I mean? Which is why I don't typically like a Mulholland Drive or whatever, because it's like, man, this is a lot. This is a lot. Life has got enough drama. I don't need to deal with it. Mm-hmm. By the way, I'll say it again. Mulholland Drive is the best film that we have reviewed on this podcast. Mm-hmm. Probably always will be. Okay, so we are going to enjoy, while watching this film for the 13th time, we are going to be enjoying Encanto de Amor with the MIA Beer Company.
Oh, I'm sorry. One last thing. That last song, Columbian, Mi Encanto.
Oh, yeah. Who doesn't speak English, by the way.
Yes. It's a non-diegetic by Carlos Vives. Yeah. And it's done in a cumbia style, which will come in handy later. But here is a cumbia.
Cumbia!
And that instrument is not a clarinet or a saxophone. It's a flute.
¡Cautivan a los hombres! ¡Cumbia!
Hold
on. Yeah.
Encanto.
And I am partially doing this to set up my thing. So that's why it's going
awesome.
I'm more immersed in this song than the movie.
Right?
I was distracted in the movie, I think.
Yeah.
There's too many little things to pay attention to.
I just wanted to see what would happen.
So Dan, before I get into the beer, So I think what I'm getting from you is, and I'm agreeing with, and by the way, again, thank you for doing what you did, because I think that is as perfect a representation of what this show is about. Mm-hmm. Is that rather than just playing those songs, which I think it would be lazy in this situation, because again, everybody's heard them. Mm-hmm. But to have the inspiration for what the origin of that is. But what I'm hearing and you playing it is, if that was the music in this movie, it would be so much better and so much more authentic.
I think it would be a richer experience.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I think I'm hearing you say. Because
you would walk away from the movie going, oh, that exists. I want to hear more of that.
And I don't think it's as popular.
But my vision of it isn't necessarily it's straight 1-to-1. I'm saying it's Lin-Manuel Miranda comes in and he works with these musicians and he kind of says, here's the key to the car, but I have a key too. But I'm going to follow you because you know where you're going.
This sounds like you're trying to explain cryptocurrency vaults and signatures.
Or is it more like when you're a student driver and the driving instructor also has a steering wheel?
Like, well, I've got a set of brakes as well.
I think it's kind of like it's. a lot of this, and again, I know the line that I'm really trying to stay on like a positive end. I'm not of the mind of like, this should have been 100% authentic and I'm mad because it wasn't. I think it's more just like oh God. Okay. I hate to reference this, but there's a moment in Dan Hates the Beatles where I'm talking about the use of sitar, and it's used. It's a sitar, but it's used just like it's a guitar, but it's not a guitar. And I was disappointed that they didn't get someone who's an expert in this instrument to play it the way it's supposed to be played, so it's actually the thing. Instead, it's just like, hey, here's this wacky thing we found. And I think that that might
personify. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that might personify exactly what you have a problem with. Is it's very much Lin-Manuel Miranda being the Beatles playing these instruments that, hey, these are very exotic sounds,
right?
But it's still a pop song.
Yeah, and I don't think you lose anything by making it. By bringing in experts and saying like, look, I have some humility here. I'm not going to explain your culture to you. You please explain your culture to me, and I'll do what I do, which is make it very popular. And
he did. And yeah, there was a research trip and all that jazz, and I'm sure he got influence from different things. But you're right. It's also Disney, and it's also a corporate machine, and it's also trying to make money and sell records.
Right. And it was also made during the time that it was. So I think that they didn't really have the opportunity to go full Joe Rohde with this. And I think that's my thing is it gets close enough to Joe Rohde land that I'm like, why didn't you just go there?
Mm-hmm. So is that your plus up?
My plus up is actually you change it. You make the first half from Abuela's point of view. That way, we're not upset. That way we don't hate the family for treating our main character like Meg. And then the flip happens and we see that, oh, this is a problem with, and you could even keep some of the issues with the story structure this way. Ooh. To have it be, here's the character, here's what I can do, here's what I can do, here's what I can do, here's what I can do for the family. Look at how perfect I am. Look at my talent, look what I can do. And then at some point it snaps and the movie goes, yeah, this movie is broken. This family's broken. This character's going to solve it.
Yeah. I can see that.
We've never had an older Disney princess before.
No, like we don't know how old Perry was towards the end.
Well, maybe the Wicked Queen was just an older Disney princess. Who knows?
Elderly squirrel.
Give me them nuts.
But we don't typically have, other than Mother Willow or Grandmother Willow, there are not a lot of older. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't think of any older matriarchal characters in Disney movies who are not evil. The Wicked Queen, the Wicked Stepmother, Abuela, for all intents and purposes. Usually older female characters are mean. Ursula, all the heroine heroes' parents are all either dead or men. And if they're female, they're wicked.
Yep.
That's interesting. Encanto de Amor by the MIA Beer Company. Fall in love with our award-winning Berliner Weiss made with raspberries and passion fruit. This fruity, refreshing Berliner took home the 2017 silver medal for best Florida beer competition in the U.S., in the European sour ale category. And Dan, I think you'd like it. It's a fruited Berliner Weiss, and it has no IBUs. Which means it's not bitter at all.
Oh.
Also, if Lin-Manuel wins the Oscar for music, well, probably, he will be an EGOT, and in fact, he'll be a PGOT because he's got a Pulitzer, Emmy, Oscar, Tony, and Grammy.
What was the Pulitzer for?
Hamilton.
Oh, good for him.
So, yeah, he'll PGOT. Now, there's only been one person in the history of EGOT, which, by the way, was coined by Tracy Morgan in 30 Rock, EGOT. There's only been one person to get EGOT twice. Does anybody know who that is?
Whoopi Goldberg?
Carol Channing.
Bobby Lopez. writer of Frozen and the musical and the Book of Mormon, and he's EGOTed twice. He's the only person in history that's done it twice.
Well done.
Yeah, what are we going to be eating?
We're gonna have pad thai. Just kidding. That's the dish. That's the dish we're having if we watched Raya and the Last Dragon, which I watched immediately.
We're having pad thai at the China Pavilion in Epcot.
Yum. Delicious. No, we're actually having
That tracks.
Cubanos.
Nice.
It's a good sandwich.
Sounds good. It is.
Oh, those are good
But
sandwiches.
again, you get the Cubano at the Mexico Pavilion. Epcot.
Right. And not, 5 miles down the street in Orlando where the person.
Oh, they're probably
Cuba's
real
actually
good.
selling.
Right.
Yeah. And a Cuban cigar. Why not for dessert? And
Just
some
put it in
rum.
the sandwich.
There you go.
Umami. So what
Que
we're
sabor.
listening to while we eat our cigar
Tan
sandwich.
rico.
You might have heard of a certain somebody named David Byrne. He came out with an album in 1989 called Ray Momo. Now, I realize that this is another example of white guy doing Latin things, but I feel like he did it kind of right here because this entire album, he wrote the lyrics, and this is going to sound familiar. He wrote the lyrics, he wrote the chord changes, and he found actual Latin bands who have been performing this music for their entire career. And he said, I'm going to follow your lead. You tell me what this song sounds like. And then I'm going to make an actual Latin album.
Cool.
And one of the songs is Call of the Wild. And it is a merengue, which everyone loves on their lemon pie.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So he legitimately was just like, you're my band and I'm just your lead singer. You tell me what to do. Which is awesome.
Talking Heads, is that right?
Talking Heads guy, yeah.
He was on
He's
Smartless podcast. It was interesting.
Yeah, he's
like
having a little bit of a resurgence lately because of his Broadway stuff.
I'd love to see that show.
I would love to see that show too. It's on HBO Max. If you would like my HBO Max password and username, call 856-R-EARS today and talk about Bruno's Wiener.
West Side Story is coming out on Disney Plus and HBO Max the same day,
Wow.
March 6th.
Wow.
It's a Fox property and Disney owns Fox, but it was also done in conjunction with Warner Brothers, so both of them own the rights.
And the two files are going to do they're going to go West Side Story on each other.
Totally. It'd be interesting to watch the two though, side by side and see which one has a higher quality.
Well, definitely Disney will because they have IMAX now.
Oh.
Yeah, you press the button and an IMAX screen appears in your home.
Nice. The magic of Disney.
I hate that company.
Wait a minute.
That's what that tracks.
Okay. What are you doing this weekend?
I'm going to Disneyland.
Exactly. Okay.
Don't forget what Daddy Chapek's done for you.
I'm also
right.
going to Knott's.
But let's be honest. For irony, mostly.
I like Knott's. I actually like Knott's. I mean, it is ironic, but I mean, you'll see when you ride the Knott's Berry Tales. You get to shoot coyotes with boysenberry jam.
Yeah.
What?
Nice.
It's charming.
Well, let's do it. We'll get the front of the line passes for everybody.
Uh-huh.
We'll have some boysenberries.
We'll have lots of boysenberries.
Hopefully,
boysenberry items.
Meet the boys and boys and the boys and thems
and the boys and girls,
the boys and theys.
Yeah,
boys and non-binaries.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that in April. In March, you're going to get the February Madness March bracket challenge of the best pre-show. There's 2 episodes of that, breaking down 32 to the top pre-show at any Disney park. And we're going to have Chris Smith, author of this fine book called A Magical Half-Century, Stories Celebrating Walt Disney World's First 50 Years. The author of
did
this,
you say Madrigal? Or
the Madrigal, first Madrigal years? So it's where all the different parks get together.
Madrigal.
Anyway, so it's a good book. It's fun. It's interesting. It's not really about the 50th. It's about more like things that happened. Like the first chapter is about the Mr. Toad and Ichabod, the Sleepy Hollow, and the Disney theme parks, and all the different ways that movie, what do they call those movies with their compilation films or whatever, because it was cheaper to make.
Package films. So like how these package films made it into the Disney World, and then how, just different stories. And it's our podcast in book form. Let's put it that way. Anyway, so that's the Supreme Resort. And there's also that little show called Ears Up, and there's Ears Up in Depth, and there's Bantha Milk, and of course Scraping the Vault.
Hey, that's our show.
Yeah. Also, there's Concierge. We have an excellent partnership with Concierge. Did you know that I currently personally am managing 20 vacation packages for mostly listeners? We just had a new family book, Sarah, who is a referral from another person who is a listener. We just booked her listeners. At the Pop Century at Disney World for 10 days.
You're killing it.
Yeah, they're going in November for 10 days, and they're going to do the parks for 5 days, and they're going to do Universal. So I was able to book them their vacation package at Disney World, including the Disney Genie Plus service for the 5 days they're going to the parks, and I was able to book their Universal theme park tickets as well. So just one call does it all.
Wow.
Concierge.com.
So I'm curious, when everything changes, will they be able to change to the Pop Century Star Wars Galaxy's Edge hotel? And will they give them the difference in the price back?
Yeah, that's a different podcast, Audrey. But by the way, Dan, you will not have to wear a mask this weekend.
I know, but I'm still gonna, because I'm a murderer.
Okay, so the next episode of Scraping the Vault, we will go back to our traditions, our origins that Pop-Up Chapek started all those years ago.
I'm excited.
Happy Chapek.
And it will be not that one, because we already did it. We did that one too. The Lion King 1.5.
Oh,
the movie I watched
the first
a year
time.
and a half ago.
Yeah, you'll have to watch it again. Lion King 1.5 that came out on February 10th, 2004. Dan, get your 2004 history. I was living in Georgia at the time. And then Springtime with Rue. And then maybe Kim Possible, A Stitch in Time. We'll see. Three Musketeers.
Kim Possible. That sounds exciting.
Mulan 2, Tarzan 2, Lilo and Stitch 2. I mean, it's just getting very exciting in the... Yeah.
And
listen,
we could just change the format at any time.
We could. I mean, it works. People like these episodes. And I was reading a review of this show, and someone says they love the Cats episode was their favorite, and we should do more musicals. So you're welcome with Encanto.
Encanto.
I would love to do West Side Story, by the way.
I hear you dropping the hint, and I'm not picking it up.
Well, maybe that'll be Audrey's pick next year.
All right.
How about no, we'll get there. I don't have the thing loaded, so I'm gonna put it in post. So,
please. We love it when you rate and review. We have a fair amount of ratings on the show. We have 5 stars, by the way. This show has a 5-star rating.
What? That's awesome.
Yeah, we just need more reviews. We want to hear more what you think. We appreciate you as listeners. We hope you enjoy the show, listening to it as much as we enjoy making it. And Dan, of course, did a hell of a job producing once again and edited very well. And our theme song by J.R. Trimp. I don't mention that enough. Thanks, J.R.
Yeah, we don't mention that enough.
Yeah. So thank you all. Be good to each other. And we'll, till next time.
Be kind.
And rewind. The family might be gone.
From the ashes of a wood-fired hearth.
From the ashes of films getting released in theaters.
That's good. I like that.
From the ashes of Kumandra, the fictional world created in Raya and the Last Dragon, it's Encanto.
There it is.
Okay.
All right. You ready? Oh, I kind of threw everything together. I'm going to do any whimsical audio stuff. I'm going to do it in post, so it's just going to go straight into the song. So, okay. Is it?
Red, yellow, leather, yellow. Red, yellow, yellow.
Mind meld. 1, 2, 3.
3.
Tiger.
It's a tiger.
We did it.
Yeah. That's right. For just $1,200, you too can learn the fabulous improv skills that we just displayed right here on Scraping the Vault, and you'll get a nice certificate that you can tape on your wall.
Printed on the finest 8.5 by 11 paper.
Showing people that you, in fact, paid $1,200 to learn the skills of improv, the magic of improv. Taste it. Okay.
Taste it.
The most revered of the arts, improv.
Yeah.
Yes, and
indeed. Okay, here we go.